In today's video, I want to take a look at the NHL standings, and if the NHL playoffs started today, who would be in and who would be out. There's certainly some notable teams that are surprising us, both in good and bad ways. Now, normally, as we know here, a lot of times the standings don't change a whole lot after U.S. Thanksgiving, which was just yesterday. So I thought this would be a good time to take a look at it. So we'll jump into all the playoff scenarios coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, I thought it might be fun today to take a look at the NHL standings and see what would be the playoff scenarios if they were to start right now. Obviously, we're about a quarter way through the NHL season, but typically a high percentage of teams holding down playoff spots by U.S. Thanksgiving do end up making the playoffs. So we don't expect a whole lot of change, although it's not, 100% guarantee all these teams will be in. But I want to take a look at who's in today and say, out of all these teams, which ones are the most likely to maybe fall out and who could possibly battle their way in here. Because as we know, like I said, statistically speaking, a very high percentage of these teams will hold down spots and end up making the playoffs. So first of all, let's get started here with the Eastern Conference. Now I'm going to put the standings here up on the screen and we'll go through where all the teams sit right now and what the existing playoff scenarios would be as of today. So right now in the Metropolitan Division, the top three teams are the Columbus Blue Jackets in first place, the New York Rangers are in second, and the Washington Capitals in third. In the Atlantic Division, we have Tampa Bay Lightning sitting in first place, the Toronto Maple Leafs in second, along with the Buffalo Sabres right there with them in third place. Now, right now, the two wildcard teams are wildcard one being the Boston Bruins, and the wildcard second team being the Montreal Canadiens. Now, this was currently set up some playoff scenarios as follows. We'd have Columbus Blue Jackets versus the Boston Bruins. The New York Rangers would play the Washington Capitals in round one. We'd also see the Tampa Bay Lightning battle the Montreal Canadiens, and the Toronto Maple Leafs battle the Buffalo Sabres. So as I mentioned, there's certainly some surprises there. If you look back at my NHL prediction videos we did as the season was getting ready to get started, certainly not the way that I had it drawn up at all. I mean, there's a few that I had right, but for the most part, there's definitely some surprises in there for sure. I mean, I don't expect the Buffalo Sabres, the New York Rangers, or the Montreal Canadiens. They're really the big three surprises, in my opinion, in the Eastern Conference that are holding down spots right now that I really didn't think would be there. Now, I did expect improvement out of all these teams, and I did think they'd be fairly respectable, but I really, they certainly surprised me with how high they are up in the standings. So if I had to say which teams are the most likely that could possibly fall back and end up missing, even though they're holding down a spot today, I would have to pick one of those three teams. Obviously, like I said, they're the very surprising teams. They're getting, improved performances that we couldn't have expected. And a lot of that, too, happens to boil down to goaltending. I mean, Carey Price has been playing better. Henrik Lundqvist has been playing well for the Rangers. And you get Carter Hutton really holding down things in Buffalo nicely as well. Now, out of the three teams, though, I think, honestly, if I had to pick, I would probably pick the New York Rangers to be the most likely team to fall back, followed by the Montreal Canadiens. I think out of the three teams that the Sabres might be the best out of the three and would probably stand the best chance to hold down their spot and move forward. But like I said, the Rangers and the Habs are both surprising and very well could prove me wrong here. Now, as far as teams in the East that could battle their way back in and potentially beat some of these teams out, I think the most likely scenario here, for me at least, is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Florida Panthers. Both of these teams are greatly underachieving so far in the first quarter of the season, and I do think there's a possibility here that both could get things going and certainly, make their way back into the mix. Now, we already saw the Penguins kind of make a small deal here, bringing in Tanner Pearson for Carl Hagelin. I don't think Jim Rutherford is done, and I do expect more out of him in the short term here. I don't think he's the type to sit around and wait, although they did have a nice big 5-1 victory with Sidney Crosby coming back just a few days ago, and they'll see if they can build off that. But now they got goaltender Matt Murray out for a little while too. So obviously goaltending can play a big role. If Casey DeSmith can hold things down, then maybe they'll be in pretty good shape. But they don't have that goaltending depth like they used to. Even though DeSmith and Murray are both capable goaltenders, they haven't both been playing at the level that we saw like Fleury and Murray here a few years back when they were winning championships. So I do have some concerns for the Penguins, but I do think that they have a ton of talent there. There's a ton of experience. They know how to win. They're well coached, and General Manager Jim Rutherford is not afraid to make some moves. And I do fully expect him to tinker with that roster some more in order to get them going here in the right direction. So I would not sleep on Pittsburgh at all. I do think there's a pretty good possibility here that they're going to battle their way back in. Now, the Florida Panthers are another team that really are underwhelming right now. They've had a good stretch of games, but they're still not where they want to be, being near the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. However, I do think the Florida Panthers have a ton of talent on that team. Now, the loss of Vincent Trocheck is going to be huge. He is going to be out for an extended period of time after that horrendous leg/ankle injury that he suffered against Ottawa a few days ago. But I mean, their other top forwards are playing phenomenally well. They got some pretty solid defense. The goaltending has kind of been the question mark, but if Luongo can keep playing well, I do fully suspect they can battle their way back in. But yet another season of a slow start for the Florida Panthers, forcing them to work that much harder in the second half of the season. They're going to have to put together some extended winning streaks here to battle back in. But I do think that they're capable of it, and I don't expect to see them near the bottom of the standings by the year end. If they do end up missing, it's not going to be by much. I do fully suspect them to be able to get back in the mix here. So what I'd like to hear from you down in the comments on the Eastern Conference is as follows. Out of the 8 teams that are holding down spots right now, which ones do you think are most likely to fall back and end up missing? And which teams do you think are most likely to be able to battle their way back in and take one of those spots away from those 8 teams? Now let's jump over and have a look here at the Western Conference. So I'll put those standings here up on the screen, and we'll see who's holding down those 8 spots as of today. Right now in the Central Division, we've got the Nashville Predators sitting in first place, the Minnesota Wild in second, and the Winnipeg Jets in third. Over in the Pacific Division, we've got the Calgary Flames, the San Jose Sharks in second, and then the Anaheim Ducks sitting in third. As of right now, the 2 wildcard teams are the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. So that would certainly set up a few rematches here from last year. We would see the Minnesota Wild battle the Winnipeg Jets here yet again. We'd also see the Nashville Predators battle the Dallas Stars. Over in the Pacific Division, we'd have the Sharks versus Ducks for the second year in a row. And we'd also have the Calgary Flames battling the Colorado Avalanche. So that will certainly set up a few repeat matchups from last year and also some different ones as well. I mean, for me, based on my old prediction video that I made at the beginning of the year, most of these teams aren't too surprising. I guess for me, I fully suspect that Minnesota might be, the ones that kind of take a step back this year, but they have been kind of continued chugging along right where they left off here in years past. They've been known to putting together some pretty stellar regular seasons, but not getting it done in the playoffs. So we'll see if this year might be any different. Last year's playoff matchup with the Winnipeg Jets did not go well at all. Winnipeg handled them quite easily, and right now they're on pace for that same matchup. So I guess time will tell here if that changes or not. But in my opinion, out of these 8 teams, the ones that would probably be most likely that I could see maybe falling out of a playoff spot would be the Anaheim Ducks or the Dallas Stars. Now, if you look back at my prediction videos, the Dallas Stars and the Anaheim Ducks were teams I did have concerns about, more so with the Ducks, really. I mean, long-term here, I know have a lot of concerns over their long-term health. They've had a lot of injury problems so far. They could continue to have more because some of their guys are, older and just seem to be prone to injuries. Corey Perry's out longer term. Patrick Eaves is back out again. If they end up with any kind of serious injuries to John Gibson, then obviously that is going to be a big role. John Gibson very well could play this team into the playoffs. It would not be a big shocker, and if he does, he certainly would be on my ballot for a potential Hart Trophy candidate. I think they are where they are right now. He's a huge part of that. Gibson is by far their MVP in my opinion. So I guess we'll see how far that goaltending can take them. Now that they finally have guys like Andre Kasher back in the lineup, they got Nick Ritchie finally signed under contract after a long holdout. So I mean that certainly will help too. They got some youth down in the minors they could bring back up with the needed injection of speed and skill with some younger team members as well. Should some older guys go down. So I guess we'll see how things go. But personally, I do have some concerns over the Ducks. Same thing with the Dallas Stars. Now the big thing with the Dallas Stars for me is Ben Bishop. Bishop, unfortunately, has a history of getting hurt, and if he can stay healthy and play, if Ben Bishop can have a relatively healthy season and not miss much time and play like he's capable, then I do think the Dallas Stars can certainly hang on here and keep their playoff position for the 18-19 season. But if Bishop goes down and is out for any extended period of time, then I do certainly have some concerns over this team for sure. So for me, Anaheim and Dallas are the most likely teams I'd have to pick to say that they could fall out of favor here and end up missing, even though they're holding a spot down today. Now, if any of that were to happen, the teams that I could see maybe battling their way back in, I'd have to pick the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Vegas, like we learned last year, they're a tough team to bet against, but they certainly look a lot more like an expansion team this year than they did last year. Things have not really gone their way. This year, they're one of the unluckiest teams in the NHL. They've certainly had a lot of things go against them that they're kind of hard to control, but they're finally starting to get some scoring out of Max Pacioretty. They can get a good rhythm here out of Marc-Andre Fleury. Hopefully Paul Stastny can be back soon. I do think that this team could have a strong second half and kind of will their way back in. Now, of course, with the Oilers, we just seen them make a coaching change with Ken Hitchcock. Ken Hitchcock does have a history of helping teams get things turned around quickly and getting them back where they need to be. The other thing with Ken Hitchcock is he tends to kind of wear on his players over time after a few years or so. I mean, he's a very demanding coach, knows how to push guys' buttons to kind of get them going. Over time that tends to kind of lose its flavor, lose its message a little bit. But for right now, for this season, I do have a pretty strong feeling that Hitchcock can certainly be a good help to the Oilers, at least short term here. Hard to say long term how long that keeps going, but I mean, they've certainly got lots of firepower, and we'll see if Chiarelli can make some good trades. I know his track record is not good. Really, he's made a lot of deals that have not looked good right now, but they really need to do everything they can to get into the playoffs, so this is not a lost season. And I do think there's a lot of pressure on Chiarelli to maybe make some additional changes here so that they can get themselves going. Now, as we mentioned in a prior video, obviously the Oilers picked up Chris Weidman. Now, that's not going to be the big trade to kind of really shake this team up, but it does give them another right shot puck-moving defenseman, which is only going to help on that back end, getting that puck up the ice. Could also help their power play as well. So, one of those things that's a minor move, small price tag, but it very well could have some pretty good value here longer term. So things that, that's actually a decent little trade for the Oilers for, small price to pay for a right shot puck moving defenseman with today's NHL. So in my opinion, those are the two teams I think that could battle their way back in and would be the most likely to grab a playoff spot from one of these teams. So again, like we talked about for the Eastern Conference, I want to hear your thoughts on the Western Conference teams. Out of these 8 teams holding down a playoff spot, which ones do you think are the most likely they could potentially fall back and lose that spot? And who do you think is the most likely to battle their way back in to take it from them? So as I mentioned before, we're now at the quarter mark of the NHL season. We don't see the standings typically change a ton after U.S. Thanksgiving. So I'm recording this now here on Friday, or the day after Thanksgiving. So we'll see how tonight's action might adjust these standings here a little bit. But like I said, I do think a lot of these teams that are holding down spots are certainly going to make it if history tells us anything here. So we'll see what can happen. There's been lots of surprises. So we'll see how the rest of this 18-19 season plays out and which teams are battling for Lord Stanley's Cup in the 2019 NHL playoffs. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.